So, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us today. As I was saying before, if you just joined, this is a meeting. This is not a webinar. This is really just to have an open conversation, hence the name Condo Best Practices Q&A. We've had some people that have reached out to us and asked us for this session, so hopefully this becomes a really informative and productive session. So Jared Perlman is the COO of Choice Mortgage, and Magda DeMoro's here. She's the AVP of Fairwinds, and they're here to just answer questions that you have. Like I said, we've had some questions come in, so if you guys want to start by sort of addressing those questions, and then you can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself, however you want to contribute or ask your questions to our panelists, you're more than welcome to do so.
Hey, Jared, do you want me to read the first question?
Sure, yeah. I don't think I have access to them.
Here, I'll grab them. Got it.
I have it in front of me.
You do? Okay, perfect.
Yep. We sometimes get confused on how they typically answer the deferred maintenance questions, with legal states not to answer or unknown. I don't know if either of those answers is acceptable, and that is why we go back and forth with the answers to get the answers that we need. Can you shed some light on that? Do you want to start, Jared?
Sure. So no, neither of those are acceptable, unfortunately. I mean, I've spoken with a number of condo, property managers, and I know that, that their legal departments are telling them not to answer. I actually have my stepfather was a condo association manager for a while, and I asked him what he said, and one of the big associations down here said that specific thing. The end of the day, I mean, you need to get them answered, but ultimately, we try and be as straightforward with it as possible. What we've really done in order to set the expectations better around that is we developed kind of a process of letting everybody in the party, the realtors, the borrower, title agent, anybody we know and have their contact information up front, what this questionnaire looks like and kind of where the pain points generally are. And that's one of the big ones. But we tell them that we need to investigate this. So it's really more of an expectation setting game, but I won't lie to you and say that it's generally easy to get those questions. You need to keep the pressure on them.
Yeah, I'll add to that we will go to every length to try to get that information, including asking for other documents such as the HOA meeting minutes and things like that to try to get to it. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to answer the questions, we stand on the position of it's going to be a no from us. And when you start to say we can't proceed without it, people tend to react, people tend to get into motion. I've seen realtors go to the HOA office and insist or demand or whatever verb you want to use to get that because they're going to lose a deal. I've had actual borrowers go and ask, hey, I need this information for myself if I'm going to be buying in this condo. So you kind of leverage those relationships. Is it perfect? No. Is it tedious? Yes. But without those answers, as a lender, you cannot rep and warrant any of this, and you really can't move forward.
Right. Just one more thought on that: getting the seller involved, are the only member who actually has standing within the HOA. So the sooner you get them involved in this part of the transaction, the better.
Good point.
Can I have a follow-up to this?
Sure.
This is, I guess if you want to call it a pain point, it's a pain point for everybody. I was kind of frustrated because the deferred maintenance question isn't even on the Freddie Mac Form 476. And I asked them if it was all right if the appraiser addresses it because they're contacting the association to verify other information. And they said they wouldn't accept it. And which is really strange because where's the line where you accept certain information confirmed by the appraiser and other information you don't? It seems kind of hypocritical, or it doesn't make sense to me. So
Barbara, They
been
don't
very
actually
frustrating.
have that deferred maintenance question exactly the way I just phrased it, but they do
Uh-huh.
have other questions on the questionnaire that talk about your reserve studies and building inspections,
Yeah.
things like that. So it kind of wraps itself in a bigger bow, if you will, than
Uh-huh.
just the deferred maintenance piece. The deferred
Mm-hmm.
maintenance piece is the part that everybody tries to hide.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Barbara, to your question specifically about the appraiser, we've always taken the approach that the appraiser is there to assign a subjective value to the property and to make sure that the
Uh-huh.
property itself, the actual unit in this case,
Yeah.
is, the unit is warrantable for lack of a
Yeah.
better term, but not the association. I'm sure you've seen any number of condo questionnaires where the owner occupied units or even the total number of units or phases are different from the appraiser as they are from what we see on the condo questionnaire. And that's because the appraiser
Mhm.
is taking one pass. So I don't think anybody from an underwriting standpoint is looking at the appraiser's word as gospel. And the approach is if the association or representative of the property manager is saying it,
Uh-huh.
that's as close to fact as we can get. But the appraisers aren't taking time to make sure that this is accurate.
Yeah. We're just looking for context that he's not telling us there's 500 units and the HOA is telling us that there's 1,000. Something is
Uh-huh.
wrong.
Normally, I would get that corrected, but we use an AMC, and the AMC has these questions on their checklist, and our appraisers put the name and phone number of the association person they spoke with to verify information, and so we thought that that would be a combination of information to support it, but Freddie Mac said no.
Well,
Yeah.
remember, they're also pulling from public record, and you use the correct
Uh-huh.
to verify. So they're pulling out of whatever county, appraiser website, the amount of units, and they're just calling to check the box. They're not
Mhm.
getting that base documentation.
So for a streamlined review process, when you only need to get a limited number of things answered, how is everybody doing that? Like what is the best practice? Do you make up custom questionnaires or like I'm curious to know how other people deal with this.
I mean,
Barbara, I'm in Florida, so
Yeah.
we actually don't go with a streamlined version of condos because of the complexity in Florida. But in
Okay.
other states, if
Yeah.
we can't get enough information to feel comfortable that I don't have any health, safety, or soundness concerns, and that there's appropriate maintenance of the property, because one of the things that you can ask for are the budgets, it's the
Yeah.
meeting minutes, there's other things that you can get. If you can't get the comfort level that you need, or something is indicating that there might be a problem that you're not seeing on your limited review document.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We ready for the next question?
There is also a question in the
Go ahead.
chat. I don't know if I'm having some trouble with the CPM integration, specifically when the CPM is showing ineligible for reserves. This is coming
Yes.
over on limited review AUS and causing an ineligible finding.
Yes.
I can't see the limited review can't see that limited review requires an acceptable CPM when it comes to budget issues, or that there were any recent changes in this regard.
I'll tell you, I'm not familiar with.
Wasn't trying to cut in line. I just wanted to throw that one out there.
So, okay.
Clay, I'm not familiar with the integration, but once it's ineligible in CPM, you have to do a full review. The limited review option's out.
Correct. That is a correct statement.
But it's ineligible for budget issues.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Clay, the only way to overcome that is for Fannie Mae themselves to move it out of ineligible. And I will tell you, it's easier to pass a bill through Congress than it is to get it overturned.
We did one.
I guess my problem with it is it does not say that anywhere in any of the releases. It doesn't say it in the guides. It does not say anywhere that you have to have an acceptable CPM for a limited review. Now, I understand if it was a repair issue, if it was, even an insurance issue, because those things all go through the limited review. But Fannie Mae needs to take a position and say, you need to check make sure that there's no budget issues on the CPM prior to the limited review.
Not specific to DU, but CPM is where you should start with all of your condos. Only because by looking up the CPM, will you know if it's eligible or ineligible? And then you have the project ID numbers that you could put into your AUS and get an appropriate finding.
Yeah, and that's a process, and we do actually use that process. But to me, there is no guide that says you have to use CPM for a limited review. I can't find that. If it's out there, great. I don't see that as a requirement.
I think it's the way that you're, and I wouldn't even know specifically what section of any guide to look at, but I think it's the way you're saying and interpreting, because you don't need CPM for a limited review. But once CPM declares a condo ineligible, Fannie Mae hasn't, I don't remember if this was a memo or a release, they have said that that condo is ineligible for financing until you remove it.
I've not seen that in a release for a limited review.
I'm looking it up now because, like Jared, I have seen that before.
I've seen it.
I'm gonna try to put eyes on it.
Because remember, this wasn't an issue prior to it being connected to the AUS, because when it wasn't connected to the AUS, you could say, hey, we're not using the CPM when it comes to a budget issue, right? But when it comes to a repair issue, you would use the CPM because we still have to care about those issues, right? Whether it's repair, or, deferred maintenance or a special assessment. When it comes to something specific to the limited review, I don't see that anywhere.
I'll let Magda find the exact one. I mean, I haven't looked for it in ever. That's always how it's been interpreted on our end.
Jared, do you want to tackle another question while
Yeah, we can move on.
research?
Sure.
Okay, let's see. So some of these were provided. Incomplete condo questionnaires, or when the HOA just isn't cooperative in getting us what we need, i.e. deferred maintenance questions, the big one. So that's same as above. If there are litigations, providing the details to be sure it isn't construction defects or anything that would impact safety, soundness, etc.
So litigation, step one: find yourself an attorney that can go into Pacer or any of the local court websites and actually pull the litigation and review it. I mean, you have to actually put eyes on the litigation. Step two: figure out the attorneys and start talking to them. It's not ideal, but you actually have to get your eyes on the litigation. I think that's where a lot of people that I see go wrong, is they are just trying to get the information from the association, not directly from the source. And then generally the attorneys are going to want to be paid, so figure out who's paying them to get your documentation right.
Any questions related to that?
I have some additional information regarding that, and I found your CPM question, by the way, on a FAQ that Fannie Mae put out. When you do have a litigation, aside from getting your eyes on it, see if there's any insurance that's going to cover whatever possible damages there are, because that might enable you to proceed, because there is going to be no financial loss to the association. And we're looking for things that not frivolous, like the lines on the parking spots are too narrow, or not that kind of litigation. You're looking for your slip and falls, your accidents, your big things, structural deficiencies from a builder, things like that are the ones that you really need to pay attention to. But without knowing what they're about, you don't know which way to proceed.
Next one is about insurance. Like we just talked about, I'm sure insurance on condos is also going to become a nightmare, since single family residences are.
Amy, before we go to the insurance, let me read the Q&A that Fannie Mae put out, and I'll give you the source document too. Okay, Clay? What are the requirements when the lender is performing a limited review or waiver of project review, and the DU message says that the project cannot be matched in CPM? It's not exact, but it's getting you in that direction. If a lender is performing a limited review, the project may not be in CPM, and the lender is not required to request the project be added. However, ineligible projects that have unavailable status in CPM, limited review must comply with a restriction of CPM for delivery.
But there wouldn't be a restriction for a limited review of the budget.
Once the CPM is giving you that it has a problem, it's telling you that you have a budget issue, you have to overcome that restriction in the CPM.
Can you see question 35 though on that same form?
35, okay. And by the way, for everybody listening, the document I am referring to is, if I can get it to roll up, is referred to as, one second. It's the condo eligibility in desktop underwriter frequently asked questions, and I don't have a published date. Actually, June of 2025. You said 35?
Yeah,
this document only has 20 questions on it, so we must be looking at two different things.
Yeah, we must be. I'm sorry. It says if a loan is eligible for a limited review, is the lender required to validate the project also meets requirements for another review type? It says no, as long as the project and loan meet all the requirements for a limited review, which includes verifying there's no ineligible characteristics. The lender may use the limited review process, is not required to validate the project also meets eligibility of another review type. It does go on to say, I think we can just agree though that it's not exactly consistent. I don't see that the CPM, I don't understand why it wouldn't have in the guides, you know, if there's a budget issue and it's been deemed ineligible in the CPM guides, you have to use it. I just feel like it's always been separate, and recently they're saying it's not separate.
Yeah, I would call maybe your Fannie Mae rep or Fannie Mae's hotline and get clarity on your specific item.
I found the document you're looking at. If you continue to read, and I do see what you're saying, but if you continue to read, it specifies that if it lists it as ineligible, it is not eligible for delivery, that they need to remove it essentially.
There it is.
Here's the excerpt for everybody.
Very frustrating. All right, thanks guys.
Yep.
All right, now on to your insurance question, Amy. Where were we?
It just says, I'm sure that insurance on condos is going to become a nightmare since single family residences are.
Yes.
This was actually from my group. I can kind of elaborate. I think what they were talking about is the actual cash value versus replacement cost. And, you know, we've seen that on the pool house, right? We've seen that on, you know, depreciating roof coverage only. Is anybody finding any ways around that, or is that just killing the condos left and right, and we're not alone?
It's not just killing the condos, Tony, it's killing the houses too.
Oh yeah, I just accept those are dead. I was just checking on the condos.
For the condos, it's really tricky because many of them are making the choice to take the cash value as a budget savings item. And they can't turn quickly to get that policy changed or amended because the board has to approve it and all of those good things. So they're pretty much DOA also.
All right, that tracks with what we're seeing.
Yeah, cash value, we haven't found a good alternative for. Higher deductibles, though, there's plenty of great non-QM options that we utilize. That goes back to, our expectation setting piece. We let everybody know, including the seller, this might change at a moment's notice, but no, nothing good for cash value.
Yeah.
And I think I got in here a little late. Did you guys already answer the other question about the HOA's tracking occupancy rate?
No.
Oh, then I didn't get in here too late. I'll shut up and wait for it to pop up.
Yeah, no, we can address that one right now. If the HOAs don't track occupancy rate, that could be a hindrance if investment property.
Yeah. Tony, one of the things we've done in the past when they're not tracking it, we know we can't rely on the appraiser, but depending on where the property is, you might be able, and it's tedious. I've seen people go through the tax rolls of a building and determine based on the mailing address just to get an idea. Yeah. It's a pain. It's easier for them to get to answer it, but if you're in resolution mode, that's an option. But that's a painful one.
You know, and probably maybe even one step further, the recorded mortgages to see if they're primary or investment.
That's farther than we've gone. I've never had anyone go through the tax rolls.
Okay, next question or comment. We can get details from agency sites, mortgage currency, AI, investors, etc., on condo review checklists and approval processes. But if anyone on the call wants to share what they use, we'd always love to have more info at our fingertips to review and possibly incorporate into our process.
Fannie Mae specifically has put out a couple of really good FAQs that we were all referring to earlier. And they also have some training materials online. So do the MI partners, because you're getting it from a slightly different perspective, from a training perspective, different approaches. There's also third-party vendors who specialize in this kind of stuff, who also put on seminars. The first one that comes to mind is an organization called Condo, which I believe is national. And
they are also a partner.
Are they? Perfect.
They're a partner, yeah, a member of TMC.
And they periodically put out a call and answer questions and things like that. So there's not one single place, there's a whole bunch of them. And as far as checklists go, I go straight to the GSC document, because I find when people create their own version of the questionnaire or your investors, inevitably there is a question that is missed or isn't exactly the same. I just use the baseline of the agency stuff. I think Ashley has put up the Condo Tech connection there on the chat if you're interested.
Yeah, and if we want to do a follow-up, I can always set up another webinar in a month or two and ask Condo Tech to join us so that we can have open conversation with them as well, ask questions if that's something.
Yeah, I'm sure Oris would love to do it. He loves talking about condos.
We thought about bringing him in here, but I thought we'd just keep it, you know, with you guys first to start, but then we'll do a follow-up one with Condo Tech.
Yeah.
So one of the things we did, we actually simplified the questionnaire as much as we could down to 8 very basic questions and gave them to, I mean, we used it as a marketing piece for our real estate partners, but we gave it to all LOs. And the original thought behind it was, all right, if you have the answers to 8 of these questions, you know, we're going to review and it's going to tell us a lot about the association. What ended up happening is the LOs that couldn't get the 8 questions answered, it essentially told them that this was going to be a non-QM condo or a no-go from day one. And it showed them to not originate the loan and to move their borrowers in another direction. And they had a firm piece of evidence as to why. Hey, we can't get 8 questions answered. We're going to have a hell of a time getting 100 questions answered. Or if they only got them partially answered, generally it's because something was wrong and you knew exactly where to dig day one. So for us, we were eliminating all the low-hanging fruit as quickly as we could, and then, you know, kind of moving on from there.
So if you don't mind me, I like that idea. It's kind of like having, because the realtors want to make sure that, you know, they're with the right lender up front, the right program up front too. So are you thinking like on the 8 questions or, you know, the limited questions, you probably took that down to like the deferred maintenance, the occupancy, budget, just some basic, just some death questions is what you're asking for, like the big heavy ones?
So here, I mean, we dumbed it down about as much as we could. Like I said, we made it a marketing piece as well. I'll stick the questions in here for you guys. But obtain the current year's approved budget. Are you aware of current or pending special assessments? If so, tell me about them. Timing, amount, what are they for? Are you aware of any deferred maintenance that impacts safety, structural integrity, habitability, financial soundness? Has the entire project, not an individual building, passed their most recent certification? Is there pending litigation? Are you aware of any recreational leases or resale restrictions? Have there been many recent finance transactions in the building? This is the big one, right? Forget everything else. If they say, no, we've never financed anything, generally our LOs stop there and go, well, there's a problem. We're not going to push this thing through. And then what's the best way to contact and pay for the HOA for the questionnaire. That's also a great one, because if they can't get that, that tells you everything you need to know about what the process is going to be.
I think that's a great time saver, Jared. Thank you for sharing that. These are all the highlights, the biggest no-fly zones there are.
There was another question in the comment. Is anyone aware of any educational materials or required checklists that can be provided to insurance agents?
Insurance agents. It's going to depend on the state that you're in. Because I know that outside of Florida, you can get more than you can here in Florida. Fannie Mae also has a general checklist for insurance requirements on a condo. And it goes into the perils, I'm drawing a blank, but all the special coverages that you need for a condo that people don't always think to get. They have it on their master checklist as well.
I would tell everybody here to make sure, especially if they're not getting what they need on the EOI, on the master EOI, to get the actual insurance declarations in the policy. We literally just had a condo we were in the process of denying this probably about a week ago. We were told vehemently up and down a specific coverage wasn't there and they wouldn't send it to us. And they accidentally sent it to our processor, thinking they were sending the policy somewhere else. And our processing manager looked through it, and sure enough, the coverage was there. This project was eligible the whole time. So get as much information as possible. Don't rely on these insurance agents. They are just answering your question, moving on to the next.
I think we addressed all the questions that were sent to us in advance. Tony, Barbara, Libby, do you guys have any other questions? Anyone else on the call have questions, comments for our subject matter experts on the call?
I'd like to just kind of go over, like, the biggest pain point was with everybody probably is the deferred maintenance questions. And this might have been the part I missed. So the tactic I've been using is we always get condo certs, right? HomeWise, these companies, that they leave it up to the condo association on how they want to answer it, and they direct them to answer NA or not allowed to answer per, legal counsel. So I've got a blanketed email that I've got set up that just says only acceptable answers to question XYZ is yes, no, not to our knowledge. And this must be answered in this fashion. I've had some success with that. What do you guys do? Because I'll get them to at least answer no, not to our knowledge. And per Freddie Mac, that is a whole different answer than NA, right? No, not to our knowledge doesn't require us to go deep dive into budget and everything like that, looking for issues in the reserve study and all that. But what are you doing when you have somebody that just will not comply? Like,
we walk away.
So, okay, and this is the perspective I'm looking for, because my poor team will spend enough time to underwrite 7 loans on these 2 questions because we've got an attorney that is just advised somebody not to answer, and there's nothing wrong with the condo. It's a 2-story condo, right? You guys are just saying tough and then moving on.
Well, Tony, we actually have somebody on our team whose entire job, he's not a processor, he's not an underwriter. His entire job is to bother the associations. We've had him write negative reviews. Actually, this was his idea. He wrote negative reviews on Google for the property managers when they won't answer things. They've gotten back to him very quickly then. He's escalated, he has got the time, so he's escalated up the corporate ladder. He's gone, to different listings in the building and told the agents, hey, you're going to have a hell of a time selling this, like, to try and get some momentum going. It's unfortunately a little bit of a game of, like, how can you bother them enough to actually get you the answer? But we realize, we're in Florida too, and so we do a lot of condos. We just realized we had to have a full-time position of, a botherer.
Yeah,
I had a boss that told me to keep it was back in the fax days, just keep faxing them the questionnaire until they call and tell you to stop, and then you'll get them to answer the question.
Tony, are you in a state that requires condo inspections or periodic reserve studies?
We have an office in Florida, but most of our business is in Ohio. So Ohio, we don't have those requirements, but I feel the Florida pain out there.
That gives us some more information, actually, because they're required to do these things. Even if they're answering no, we'll ask for those documents and you'll see it anyway. But if you don't have that leverage or that requirement in Ohio, that can get a little more difficult.
Now, are you referencing the reserve study? Or
Both,
no, you're talking about
because
the structural. You're talking about the structural.
there's both components in Florida.
So one of my biggest pet peeves is the reserve studies, in my opinion, are home inspection. Like they call out every possible thing, and any underwriter that's reading that's going to be scared to death. There's really no way to have a reserve study. Like, can you imagine if every conventional underwriter on every single family home saw every property inspection, right? No loan would close, right? So the reserve studies just scare the living blank out of everybody. And I'm trying to figure out how to get them to look at something else and not get caught up on the reserve study because they're in an impossible situation.
I think it's just an alternative to your nose that you're getting on the deferred maintenance question, because you can readily see it on that document if they insist on the no.
It's true. So let me ask you, where do you draw the line for deferred maintenance and structural? Because that's always fun because you see one thing that affected one unit in a different building. Is that deferred maintenance and structural on your subject? If it's let's say it's a different phase, different building.
It is not about your unit. It is about the project in its entirety. So depending on if my reserve study is telling me that the paint needs to be repainted or the asphalt needs to be restriped, I really don't care.
Right.
But if they're telling me that the electricity to the lights in the pool need to be repaired, oh yeah, that's a yes. I need that taken care of. I need to understand how much it's going to cost. When is it supposed to be done? Those kind of things. Somebody can get electrocuted in that pool.
Right.
Not good. If it's railing, balconies, infrastructure, my key word in Florida, I look for spalding and crackled walls, because that's indicating coastal, that indicates there's rust. So those are all key things that we focus in if we're doing coastal properties. But not every item on the reserve study equals a health, safety, and soundness concern.
I agree. Maybe I just have to just use a little bit more common sense and just kind of stress some things when I see it because they need the backup. And, they're just trying to keep us safe so we can sell a loan.
Right.
It's impossible.
Awesome. Well, we are at time, actually a little bit over, but wow, that went quick. Thank you so much, Magda and Jared, for being available for all these questions. I will follow up with a recording of this so that everybody can refer back to it. And then we'll talk about setting up another call with Condo Tech if people still want to, ask them questions. Magda and Jared, obviously, are more than welcome to be on again. Really appreciate all of you. And thanks to everybody who showed up today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I appreciate everybody. Thank you all.
Bye. Thanks so much.